Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are back. This is On the Reel after the credits. This is a special edition where we are going to talk about some more Justice League. Ladies and gentlemen, the unthinkable has happened. Justice League, the first time Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and The Flash and Aquaman and Cyborg are all seen together on screen. And what is this movie kind of in at their opening weekend? $96 million. And just so that we all understand how important this is, I want to show you guys a little graphic about how bad this is. Now you can see this graphic on the screen, and you can see that Man of Steel, the first installment in this series, 116 million. Batman v Superman, 166 million.
Brutal.
Suicide Squad, 135 million. Wonder Woman, which everyone loves, 103 million. And this time, the thing that it's all been leading to, 96 million.
Yeah.
So
Steve,
and joining me today, because I needed some help to talk about this one, is Mr. Woods.
What up? I was just gonna say, are you gonna introduce yourself? Are you gonna introduce the people?
This is not about. It's not about me.
There's no introduction. This is bigger. Okay.
This is bigger than
Gotcha.
that.
All right.
It's not
All
about
right.
me.
All right.
It's not about you.
I see what you did there.
But
this is crazy.
this is serious business.
And this is news edition just to talk about Justice League.
I mean, this is big news.
Yeah.
There's big implications here, but before we get started talking about this thing, I just want to remind everybody, if you like what we've had to offer so far and you like what you see here, just go ahead, take a moment to like and subscribe. It helps us out a lot.
Yes.
And comment too, because this is one where we want to hear what you guys have to say, because
Absolutely.
I have thoughts, and I'm pretty sure Mr. Woods has thoughts.
Yes.
So let's get right into this thing.
What are we gonna start with? We're gonna talk about these numbers.
Yes. So back to these numbers, and again, I cannot stress enough. This is a disaster. It's an unmitigated disaster.
In any other case, 96 million would be okay.
In
right?
any other case, but let's understand.
All right.
The budget on this film, and they're not releasing hard numbers, right? But the budget on this film,
Yikes.
at the very least, at minimum, was $250 million. And that's not what it was. That was before the reshoots. The reshoots added upwards of $50 million. This is about a $300 million movie. Another film opening to 96 million. Let's throw a parade for it.
Right. Let's be
Great.
happy. Right.
Fantastic. This film, the lowest opening of all the DC movies, 96 million.
96 million, man.
Do you understand that? Let's say this film with the reshoots came out to 300 million. They also spent another 100 to 200 million on marketing.
You sure they spent 200 million on marketing?
This is what they do for these things.
I didn't.
So we're talking about a $500 million budget all in to break even at the box office, before they see $1.
Right.
If you count because they don't get what the theaters get, right?
Right.
The studio gets what they get minus whatever the movie theater gets.
Okay.
This film is going to have to make about $650 million
just to recover,
to break even.
Oh, to break even. Jeez.
And with this opening weekend, and with that, with the Rotten Tomatoes score, which is at about 39% right now.
Oh, it went up.
and with the cinema score,
right,
being at a B+, and B+ sounds high, but your movie has done nothing if it's not an A with cinema score. And I'll explain it to you why. Cinema score trends higher than the critic reviews. So this movie has the same cinema score as Suicide Squad and the latest 50 Shades of Grey and Power Rangers. That's where the cinema score is when we say it's a B+.
Yo, that's brutal.
So you need an A+ to be considered like a good movie by the
Right,
audience. And Cinema Score is reputable because people who really saw the movie, so you can get a pulse. So
right.
people are lukewarm on this thing. I don't know that it can make its budget back.
It's not. I don't see it. I really don't. And it's brutal. You know, I mean, listen, I've said it previously. I'll be the first to admit that I thought the power of seeing, this is where was my mind in thinking this, but the power of seeing Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, all of these characters that you
Wait,
named
hold on. Let me just ask you a question.
from the get go.
Did we see Superman in any of the marketing?
That's why I asked you about that 200
Nope.
million.
But go ahead.
Okay. Wasn't there an S somewhere? I could have sworn there was
an S. It's great. Right. Right.
But
okay.
not him, right?
No.
Listen.
So your Justice League movie,
which was devoid of Superman within
in
the marketing.
all the marketing.
In all the marketing, yeah. And those Batman and Superman are your two, those are your home run hitters, So I thought that this would have been a big deal. I thought everyone would have been like, "Oh my God, I got to see this film." This is the first time. The first time. There's no. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no like 1974
Nope.
version of.
You don't even got to finish the sentence. No, this was supposed to be their
Yikes,
Justice
man.
League, and
Yikes.
we can get into. And by the way, everyone. If you want to know what we thought about it, you can watch our non-spoilers review.
Right.
And we got into a very heated debate during our spoilers discussion. But this is to sort of just give you a little bit of the backstory, talk about these numbers. So we've done a lot of coverage on this film because it deserves it.
Yes.
But check out our non-spoilers review if you want to know what we thought about this. This is about the behind the scenes.
Yeah, this is behind the scenes. This is spoiler filled. All of that.
What led up to this monstrosity?
And look, the reason why we decided to, just give just a news on just this is because we know the backstory as to what went into this, and we're just wondering. Well, actually, we kind of know. And so we want to give a little insight to everyone else as to how did we get here, or rather, how did DC get here? And it's important to kind of shed some light on that.
I'm actually, to be honest with you, less concerned about how we got here and
what is we
gonna do in
terms of solutions, right?
But we'll do a little bit of history lesson into this whole thing and then sort of figure out, because that's the real interesting question is what do they do next?
How do you rectify something that's brutal like this?
You know what? We'll talk about it in a minute.
Burn it all.
Okay. So we've had 5 movies in this extended universe so far. And again, that's Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, and Justice League makes 5.
Right.
There's an Aquaman film that has already they're done filming it now. It's coming out next year.
December.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
and Shazam is next.
Shazam is they've moved past the casting stage.
Yeah. Setting
everything up. They have a director.
Right.
They have their Billy Batson and Shazam.
Yes.
The Rock is Black Adam, and he will or will not be in it. We'll see. But
is that set in stone that The Rock is Black Adam? Like,
but he's been Black Adam for like 6 years.
That's what I'm saying. But this is official. He is the Black Adam.
Well, I mean, provided there is a
market for Black Adam.
No, provided there is still a DC universe after all this. But
okay.
So the idea is we had all these films, and in my opinion, and maybe Mr. Woods, you agree with me. Man of Steel, though it was my favorite of all of them, all 5,
right,
including Wonder Woman, I said it. It was a divisive film, and not everyone liked it.
Okay.
Now, I appreciated what they tried to do, but a lot of people tell you they pulled out what makes Superman Superman.
Right.
And so, people didn't sit well with it, and personally, I went into that film saying, you know what, this is not your daddy's Superman.
Right.
I remember that they tried to do one in 2006,
Right.
the Bryan Singer film, which was just really a copy of what we saw with Christopher Reeves, and that didn't work. So when we finally got Zack Snyder,
Right. You talking about when the Kryptonite and
yes, Kevin Spacey
I
stabbed him
wouldn't say
someplace.
his name around these parts nowadays.
Well,
but
yes.
yeah. Okay.
But the point is,
Yes.
I couldn't have been more excited.
Right.
This was the director of 300, the director of Watchmen,
Right.
coming in, produced and shepherded by Christopher Nolan.
Okay.
We're getting him.
Talking about Man of Steel.
Man of Steel.
Okay. Okay.
And we had a film before where Superman didn't punch anybody, right?
Right.
That was the Bryan Singer film. They came in, there was action there, there was contemplation on what would happen if this world was real,
Right.
and it worked. And I don't. This all leads to Justice League,
Right.
which is why I want to mention that briefly. And then things got weird. But do you want to say anything about Man of Steel? Because I want to just quickly get through these so we can get to the meat and potatoes of this
Right.
thing.
Understandable. For me, briefly, I didn't really have a problem with Man. There are problems with Man of Steel, but I didn't have a problem with Man of Steel. What I did have a problem with is that there wasn't a follow-up to Man of Steel. And do not tell me that BVS was that follow-up. And so for me, in terms of the direction of what Zack Snyder was doing with Christopher Nolan's magical vision, I guess, is that safe to say?
That's magical is a strong word, but yeah.
All right. So, well, with his vision,
You got a package.
a package deal. So, with what Zack Snyder was supposed to do with Man of Steel, I had no problem with that. There's controversy with Zod and everything. Okay, I get that, but I didn't get a follow up to that. I didn't get to see how does Superman progress in this world that he's entered, or on Metropolis. And so when we jump right into BVS, that's when I said, okay, what's happening? I felt that BVS came too quickly.
Right, so
that's just what I wanted to say about Man of Steel.
And this is
And these are the things that kind of lead into like how did we get here?
Right, and it's sort of an overarching theme with the production of these Warner Brothers films,
Right.
who owns DC.
Right.
So essentially, I think that they were sort of pigeonholed by the success of The Dark Knight, which doesn't logically or thematically work with Superman, because the whole shtick of The Dark Knight was that it was based in realism. Like, if Batman was real, this is how it would be. And
How would it work?
in
Yes.
that world, you can't do Superman.
Right.
Now, you have to do a more stylized Batman if he's going to work with Superman. So I understood that, but they had to wait until the Batman franchise was complete.
Right, completed.
So
Correct.
that held them back from what they were trying to do, because what they originally wanted to do was have Christopher Nolan's Batman interact with Bryan Singer's Superman and Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern.
No.
The only problem is none of those worked out except for Christopher Nolan's films.
Right. In terms of success, you're referencing in terms of success.
And that was their original plan. So they
Right.
wanted to. They felt like Bryan Singer gave them the essence, because he essentially remade Superman 2.
Right.
Except for some reason he made Superman a deadbeat dad, but that's neither here nor there. And then we all remember, but we all like to forget that before Ryan Reynolds was Deadpool, he was Green Lantern. So that's the thing they were setting up, and they were building to it.
Right.
And doing what we say they should have done with Marvel. They tried, but timing didn't work. Now,
Right.
they saw the success Marvel was having with Avengers and Iron Man and all of these characters.
Right.
And they're like, look, Marvel's properties are all over the place. We have everyone. Right? Marvel didn't have Spider-Man at the time. They still don't have X-Men.
No, right.
Warner Brothers has all their characters. They have the Trinity: Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. We need to do something. So they say, we're going to start this thing. And Zack Snyder, we know you know comics. We know that you did Watchmen for us. And even though it didn't make a lot of money, you took the superhero genre into a different direction.
Yes.
Can you do that for us?
Right.
And believe it or not, we love Christopher Nolan, and people, like to say stuff about Zack Snyder. Christopher Nolan handpicked Zack Snyder.
Okay.
He and David Goyer, though that's who he gets the stories together with The Dark Knight for.
Right.
They got together. They said, "This is what we want Superman to be about."
Okay.
How would the world really react to Superman, and how could Superman relate to the world? How does he know who he's supposed to be?
Right.
Because he is a man with two fathers.
Right. Right. Okay.
And no matter what he does, the world is going to look at him and throw their ideas on him.
Right.
And how people, it speaks to religion. It spoke to a lot of things, and there were a lot of grand ideas there.
Right.
And so I understood and appreciated that.
Okay.
And he handpicked again Zack Snyder because of his work on Watchmen.
Right.
Now
to give us a more stylized Superman.
Right, but still keeping it dark because Watchmen had substance.
Right.
Now,
I have no problem with that.
If you look at the color palette and the tone of the current DCEU, it's very reminiscent of the Watchmen.
Yes, I believe so.
Again, the substance isn't there, but color palette and tone, thematically, it's not as well executed, but it is like what you saw. BVS is like what you saw.
BVS. Okay,
yes.
I'm thinking of
Man of Steel.
But BVS is like Watchmen in terms of color palette. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And it tried to tackle big ideas, but so what happened is BVS started as Man of Steel 2. But they did some test screening where they were just going to slightly introduce Batman, Bruce Wayne, and Wayne Manor.
So they wanted it to be a gradual progression.
Right. We're just saying, yes, it should have been Man of Steel 2. That's what it started as.
Okay.
And then they would have had a scene in Wayne Manor just saying, look, here's Bruce Wayne. This is the Bruce Wayne scene. Let's get everybody excited. Right. But it tested so well.
They got ahead of themselves.
Kevin Tsujihara, top brass at Warner Brothers, said, you know what? Let's go for it. F it.
Awful.
And
Awful
they
decision.
sort of felt like they were
behind
playing catch up. And so they said, you know what?
Awful.
It's going to explode the budget because these things are going over budget, over time.
Right.
Because if you look at the delta, 2013 to 2016 for Man of Steel to BVS.
Right.
So 3 years, and that's because that was basically 2 movies, and they wanted to say, here, we have arrived.
Right.
Don't worry about those guys over there at Marvel playing with their D list. This is the Trinity.
This is our stuff. Look at us. Yeah.
And so we don't need to follow the Marvel model.
It doesn't work like that.
And
I mean, you don't have to, but you listen real quick, and I'll let you continue. And I can't stress this enough. People need to understand that Marvel built their reputation by their fans growing with the films. And one thing that and this is why I just want to jump back to this about why I thought this would have worked and I was so off, is because no one cared about these guys in tights, right? These men and women in tights, because they've crapped the bed so many times, as you're going into. But with Marvel, and the success of what they did and how they took their time to get there, is you've not only had hardcore fans who wanted to see their favorite superheroes on the big screen, but you brought in an entire populace of people who've never read a comic in their life, but just wanted to see a movie with action. And so they were able to successfully get people on board who don't even read comics and say, oh, okay, I could believe this. Oh, okay. And they did it little by little. They didn't shove BVS down your throat or a lemon-scented pickle like this guy.
And here's the thing. And I'm going to quote Meyer Burnett
Who is
in
this?
saying he has worked behind the scenes in a lot of films, and he's on a podcast called Heroes.
Gotcha.
But Meyer Burnett, you don't put your universe before your movies. The same way you don't put the cart before the horse.
Right, 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 right.
Marvel will tell you any day of the week. And this is not about like, oh, Marvel is better or whatever.
Right, right.
But it is, you make a good movie first and you worry about the universe later.
Right.
And that's where Iron Man 2 went wrong. And they learned their lesson there and they didn't do it again.
Right.
So if we're going to do some advertisement for another movie, it's going to be in the post credits.
Iron Man 2 still made mad money, though.
It did.
Yeah,
but
that's
again,
also success of
everybody gets to crap. You can't keep doing it.
Right, right.
So
Spider-Man says, you only get one.
Yeah, and that's the thing. But moving forward, because we're getting long in the tooth about this here.
Yes, absolutely.
So BVS comes out, and it is just everything that is wrong with these big budget Hollywood movies. That's another one that they reported it as a budget of $250 million. It was more than that.
Right.
And as it was the lowest, one of the lowest rated films. It was the lowest rated comic book film that year, but one of the lowest rated films that year. And they followed that up with Suicide Squad. And both of those made money because they had the goodwill of the fans, but it's only so long that lasts.
Right.
And then we get Wonder Woman. And that is, I'm going to bring up Wonder Woman in a little bit later because that actually makes things very difficult for what they're going to do moving forward. Mm-hmm. Wonder Woman comes out. Audiences love it. 92% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Right.
It makes bank. It has staying power.
Right.
Cultural phenomenon.
Right.
All those things.
Right. Everyone's saying it's about time. All these good things.
First time Wonder Woman's on. So and what do you take note from in that film? It wasn't really concerned with the extended universe.
It was self-contained.
And they put a little thing in there from Bruce Wayne at the beginning and at the end, but it had no effect on the story.
Right, right.
Bruce Wayne sends her a note. That's it. And that's how you do it, my friends.
Right. And you build
put your movie first.
Exactly.
Leave all your advertising to your after credit scenes.
Exactly.
Now, Justice League is happening. And Justice after BVS, the studio didn't really want to go with Zack Snyder, but everything was already in place.
Right.
So they decided, we could get another director, but then we'd have to change the date, and 2018 is already crowded because
Black Panther, first Infinity.
Even if they're not worried about Black Panther, they're worrying about Infinity Wars.
Right.
And Fox has 3 X-Men movies coming out.
Right.
It's a crowded year. This is where they said they were going to put it. They had spent enough money on it. Right. To retool it now is gonna, ensure further losses. So they decide they're gonna put it out, and they decide they're gonna stay with Zack Snyder. Now, they're moving along, production is going along, and the word comes down from the top now when BVS reviews come in. Hey, people thought this was dry and dark and devoid of all
the things
humor,
of why you want to go
or
see
just fun. It was a bore, and they said, "Look, you're gonna have to lighten this thing up."
Right.
And so the first trailers we saw, no, we didn't even get there yet.
Right.
They even told Zack Snyder he had to do that. So while Zack Snyder was still on the film, you saw little jokes. That I'm Rich joke and the scene with him in the Flash, that was under Zack Snyder.
Right.
Now, fast forward a little bit more, and then we find out. And oh, by the way, the other thing we didn't mention, at this time, Ben Affleck was set to, and Warner Brothers announced a bunch of films. Ben Affleck is going to, he was going to write, direct, and star as Batman in a Batman standalone trilogy.
And he was also going through a divorce and everything else.
And so rumors start to come out saying, you know what? Um, Ben
This
Affleck.
Justice League is a brick.
Well, not yet. We're not even there yet.
But he's hearing these
The
things.
word
He's
comes
keeping
out,
his ears open.
and he had to deal with the sad flack, the Simon and Garfunkel
Right.
things, and people are making fun of him
Right.
while he's going through his personal problem. And I think
Yes.
he had checked into rehab. And again,
Yep.
again,
Alcoholism.
everybody happens to the best of them, right?
Yes. Yes.
But we hear, oh, he's not directing anymore. And then everyone's sort of freaking out because this guy, you know, he directed Gone Baby Gone, he directed
Right.
The Town, he directed Argo, won an Oscar for that, not directing but producing.
Right.
And then he comes out and confirms he's not directing. He says, you know, there was a quote there.
Right. Well, I mean, he says performing this role demands focus, passion, and the very best performance I can give. It has become clear that I cannot do both jobs to the level they require. Together with the studio, I have decided to find a partner in a director who will collaborate with me on this massive film. I'm still in this, and we are making it, but we are currently looking for a director. I remain extremely committed to this project and look forward to bringing this to life for fans around the world. He was still on board.
He's still on board, and then
He's
brought
about that
in,
life.
and at that point, they're using his script.
Yes, sir.
He's not directing it.
Brings in
And
Matt Reeves.
Matt Reeves, the director of the Apes franchise,
Right.
like the new Planet of the Apes franchise, and then
tosses it.
they toss his script.
But they run up on Affleck and ask him, "Hey, man, how do you feel?" And you know, diplomatically, he says, "I'm the luckiest guy in the world. Batman is the coolest effing part in any universe. It's effing amazing, and I still can't believe it after 2 films. And Matt Reeves is doing it. I would be an ape on the ground for Matt Reeves. And I think you'll see why I'm so excited to be Batman." Word.
And then something else happens.
When you talk about when after now he goes, well, you know, I'm looking for the new Batman movie being developed by Matt Reeves is something I'm contemplating.
He's contemplating it now. He was gonna be an ape crawling on the ground before.
He says, "Listen,
but now he's contemplating.
Easy. You don't do it forever. So I want to find a graceful and cool way to segue out of it."
Do you hear that, ladies and gentlemen? He wants out.
Yes, he does.
They didn't want him to direct it. They threw out his script. He's an Oscar-winning director. He's won 2 Oscars so far, and all everyone asks him about is the Batman, and then make fun of him if he stays, and then cries if he wants to leave. And I think he's tired of it.
Yep.
So
and remember, he's dealing with a lot of his own.
And all of this is surrounding the film, and somewhere in there, Zack Snyder has a terrible tragedy,
right.
A family tragedy, and he leaves the film. So this film now, it doesn't have a vision, right? It is sort of plagued with these just bad news after bad news.
Talking about Justice League?
Yes. And so they bring in the one and only Joss Whedon,
right?
The architect of the MCU that we know and love today,
right?
But there's one catch.
What is that catch?
They gave him a list of things he had to do, which is included cutting the film down to 2 hours,
Edward Scissorhands,
changing the color palette, actually recoloring it,
yes,
already filmed scenes, rewriting the script to make it to add more levity,
right,
and adding new CG shots. This, by the way, added another $50 million to the budget, and they said, "Hey, by the way, we're not moving the date. You only have 6 months.
Right. So
have fun."
So think about this for a second. With Justice League, right? Which again, for anyone who's spending their dollar on this, it's none of your concern, and I understand that. But you have 2 directors. You changed the score. Your marketing is botched. Your PR is extremely leaky. The costume designs don't really work on set with the color palette. That's what's going on, right? The tone of the film is shaky, right? You're asking the director to edit the film into a nothingness, right? Just cut it all up and get it under 2 hours, right? People, as they're watching it, and people who are leaving out in early testings, are saying, "I don't feel that there's any character development going on," right? The release date was in jeopardy because you don't want to put it out in 2018, and you're saying when we're fixated on November 17th, I believe, or whatever. Yeah. This is when it's coming out. This is what you got to work with. I don't care. Your budget is 250 at this point, and now going up to 300 million for this film,
give or take.
And on top of that, the parent company Warner Brothers has a stake in a well-known review company.
Oh, we're not even there yet.
Oh,
we're not even there.
Oh, yet. I leave that for a moment.
Yeah, just one
Go
more
ahead,
because there's more.
I mean,
so
this is crazy.
Between switching out
for
directors,
one film,
right? But between switching out directors, between not knowing the future of Batman,
right?
Between 2-hour mandates, between divisive earlier films,
right?
And then now they're doing reshoots, and we have Mustache Gate.
Oh yeah.
So apparently,
right. Henry Cavill.
Superman, Henry Cavill. In order to do reshoots, he's on another movie right now for Paramount.
Jeez, man.
And he has to have a mustache for that film.
Right.
And they would not allow him to cut his mustache.
Right.
To shave his mustache, and so they had to use CG, further adding to the budget, on his upper lip to cover the mustache. And ladies and gentlemen, you can tell.
It's awful. It's god awful.
And I wish I didn't know, because maybe if I didn't know about it, I wouldn't be looking for it. But it does sort of smack you in the face as soon as the film starts.
I didn't even know that, and then once I saw it, I was just like, "What is happening?"
You can't unsee it when you know.
Right, exactly.
So the film sort of, and I liked the film, right? I gave it a 7.8, but it was a hack job. And when I say a hack job, you have one director's vision, and then another director has to execute a different vision that is mandated from the studio, along with a time.
It's brutal.
And one director has to use the shots to execute a different vision that were and these shots were made or filmed for Zack Snyder's vision.
Right.
So that means like I have a recipe and I'm making it, and then I don't finish it, and I give it to you, and I tell you to make it into something else, but you still have to use the stuff that I have in the pot already.
Nobody likes playing with anyone else's saved data. If you're that type of person, more power to you. But if I start a game, I'm starting it new, and I'm playing my file, my game.
You really had to take that to Mario Odyssey, didn't you?
Actually, for some people who know me out there, there's an actual different take on that save data, but I'm not gonna do that right now.
Okay,
that's too
not
crazy.
The time or the place.
No, it's too crazy.
But so then there is
don't play someone else's save data.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
We all know about Rotten Tomatoes, and we look at Rotten Tomatoes for the score. So the other controversy about this thing, right before I come to Rotten Tomatoes,
okay, I see that as a teaser.
They put an embargo on the reviews.
Yeah,
and
24-hour embargo.
Right. So essentially, no one could release, even the critics that saw the movie, they could not release any reviews until the day before the film was released.
Right.
And what that does is, you do that for two reasons. You want to hide spoilers, like in the case of Star Wars, but you already have the goodwill of the people.
Right.
Or you do that because your movie's going to stink, and you don't want the bad news on your opening day and opening weekend out there, so you hold off on the reviews.
Right.
But then they started to let the reviews out.
Right.
But as we all know, Rotten Tomatoes is it's an aggregate of all those reviews, so you can take a pulse of the critics' sphere and see what how a movie is, and see whether you want to see it or not. And for some reason, Rotten Tomatoes decides, hey, we're doing this new show, and if you want to find out the score, you have to tune into the show. So people using Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it was a Facebook show.
Oh
And
wow,
so
I didn't even know
they
that.
wanted to steer people. Well, I only think that show exists as a cover for why they wanted to delay this review.
I did not know that. Okay.
So, and the show is just about like watch it or not. Like,
Right,
should
right,
you
right,
watch this movie?
right.
So, but the point is, they did not release the embargo for movie critics to release their reviews,
Right.
and they also, by the way, um, Warner Brothers owns a stake in Rotten
They have a
Tomatoes.
small portion, right, in Rotten
So,
Tomatoes. So they
um,
held them back too.
right. So now people couldn't go see the Rotten Tomatoes score. It was hidden from them. Um, we don't know what's happening with Batman.
Right.
The budget has skyrocketed. We've changed directors. We've had a 2 hour hard deadline. You've changed the color palette.
Your
You
PR is
forced jokes
crazy.
into this
Yep.
thing. And it was just, you sort of go into this thing like, well, I have to see it because Justice League. But,
Right.
I don't really care. But it turns out this time, not a lot of people had to see it.
Yeah.
So,
A lot of people said, you know what, I'm good.
um,
And again, the people out there who don't know any of this, why would you want to invest your hard-earned dollars to go see this movie when you got crapped on by Suicide Squad, you got crapped on by BBS. Some people didn't like Man of Steel, understandably so. You're like,
I don't understand, but
no, but I mean, understandably so that you don't want to go see another. You're not spending your money on this. You rather go see something else or just save it. And that's what happened. So I get it, but for me, that's why I had gave it a 75, which is it's passing, but I knew all of this behind the scenes stuff, and I was just like, for them to pull off,
were you grading on a curve?
definitely grading on it. I might have been grading on
Okay.
a curve, man.
All right, now
Not might have. Let me just own that. Yeah, I was grading on a curve, but
I
listen, man.
I want to get to now because this is really why we're doing this, and we may need to edit out some of that history lesson. But what do we do now? What do we think happens? And you may think your gut instinct says, you know what, you have a bad foundation, and nothing can be built on a bad foundation that won't fall apart.
Right.
So maybe it's just time to just, Ben Affleck already doesn't want to be Batman anymore. Maybe you just reboot, start the whole thing over. Here, there's one problem.
Gal Gadot.
Gal Gadot.
Well, is she the lone survivor? All right, let me just jump in really quick, and you could say your piece. I believe she can survive a nuclear blast that would destroy everyone that's within that DC universe right now. I'm sure people will be like, "Oh, okay, she's still around," and nobody's gonna like cry about it. Typically, we have on the set, we'll have a couple of Marvel figures or DC figures or Walking Dead or whatever. There's a reason why there's only Flash up here today, because
I like that.
Flash is going to be the one that they're going to have in.
We did not plan that.
Hey, that's the genius of me. But no, we didn't. But there's a reason why Flash is just here, because planned or not, this is what's going to have to happen. This is their the trick up their sleeve, their hidden ace. And otherwise, if you're not going with a Flashpoint storyline or something to just erase everything, I don't know. Again, for me personally, I like Henry Cavill as Superman. I
like Ben Affleck.
I don't mind Ben Affleck as Batman. You just was supposed to introduce those characters in separate stories and take your time and then let it build to something, or not. And I would have been cool. But instead, you were frothing at the mouth. You said, we have to catch up to Marvel. No, you don't. You have a war chest that can handle yourself. These movies aren't going anywhere. And you just jumped right into it.
I keep coming back to your last two Batman films, because it's Batman,
right,
did over $1 billion.
Right.
So if you're worried about, hey, there's money to be made, we need to go and rush this thing, do your standalone Batman film. Because you know what? The last two standalone Batman films both made more than BVS.
Well, they
You
did,
put Batman in a movie, you guaranteed $800 million at that time.
but they did need to have some type of separation between Christopher Nolan's, you know, beautiful world of Batman, and then say, okay, here's a new Batman that we're
Yeah,
introducing.
you know how you do that.
You had to wait a little bit.
Introduce Diana in the Batman movie, and then you have a spinoff, so you can have that dynamic.
You talking
between the
about
two
Wonder
of them.
Woman?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And you can put her. Maybe Bruce doesn't even know that she's Wonder Woman yet, but she's there.
Right.
And then you sort of introduce, maybe in the end credits, or she'll come and help him fight or do something. To you just say, hey, that person that I thought was just an interesting love interest,
Right.
for Batman that he could never get.
Right.
You come and see her
And
in the
do
next
something like
movie.
that.
Oh crap! The reason she was such a good spy, keeping up wits with Bruce, is because she was actually Wonder Woman, and that's your big reveal.
If you wanted to give me a dark Superman, all you had to do, and by dark meaning he's just a little more tamed and all you had to do was that he comes in, and this is my I don't retcon, or I try not to. I retcon in private, but I'm not getting paid for this. So you have Superman come to Earth. He deals with what's this guy's name? Zod. He deals with Zod. The second film, you show Superman saving a whole bunch of people. Now we care. Now we're invested, right? But he is hurt because of all the thousands of people he saved, there's 5 people who pass. 7 people, 10 people, 15 people, 100 people who die. And he's conflicted with that. And no matter what he does, he keeps seeing that the world is still in conflict with itself, right? And by the time you get to the third movie, he dips. He leaves. He's done with Earth, right? And now you're introducing, as you said, these other characters, and either they're finding Superman, or he has to find himself again, or there's a threat that's just going to eliminate the entire population, and he comes to the realization that, hey, you know what? Earth is worth saving, no matter how dire or how self-abusive they are to each other, or whatever. You know what I mean? And you go with that. And it doesn't, I know I'm broad stroking, but that's how you do something like that. But you introduce these characters, as you said, as one film after another, and we get comfortable and acclimated to what we're seeing with each character. Not just this, hey, here's Batman, and hey, here's Doomsday mixed with Zod and Lex genes, and hey, here's whatever.
But all that happened.
It did.
The question to you is, what can they actually do at this point? Right? How do you, if you're going to reboot, which at this point, I feel like they have
to destroy it all.
But then what do you do? Are you going to say the film that was a cultural phenomenon in Wonder Woman, we're just going to say what kind of backlash are they going to take? Are they going to lose the only goodwill they have?
Well, as I said,
should anyone trust them if they get rid of the one good thing they have?
The two things that I worry about is that, one, did they lose all of their trust within the populace? Because people are not going to just freely spend their money like they used to, right?
No, you
more
have
people are reading the back of labels before they buy, right?
Because you have so many options.
Exactly. So
you understand there are 5, not including DC.
Right.
There are 5 comic book movies coming out. Wait, it may be more. Because I think Ant-Man comes out.
Does it?
Yeah.
Later in 2018?
Yeah. Maybe.
Oh, it comes out after Infinity.
Yep.
Yeah. You're right.
So you have 6 movies coming out. Because from the Fox side, you have Deadpool, you have X-Men: The Dark Phoenix, right? And you have New Mutants.
Yeah.
From the Marvel side, you've got Black Panther, Infinity Wars, and Ant-Man and the Wasp.
That's 3 more.
Now, we have options for there, and all of those are poised to be great.
Right. Why would you want to spend your $13
exactly.
on $15, $20 on?
So again, my question is, how do you throw away the only goodwill that you have?
Again, I think
because I think that this thing is built on a faulty foundation. As much as I love Man of Steel,
yeah,
and you can't build on that. The patchwork is the problem.
Right. Because they're
So,
still not addressing the true issue.
or, and this is something you and I say to each other all the time, stay the course.
Well,
Do they stay the course? Do they say, you know what, this was a misstep, but we knew, and we just tried to mitigate losses. So we cut the movie down, and we cut out anything that wasn't offensive, and we held back the reviews because we just needed to get it out. There was too much money spent on this thing, so we couldn't throw it out.
I just wonder if, well, as I said before, Gal Gadot could probably survive this bomb.
How? So is that how you start your new universe? That you literally kill everyone, or are you saying a figurative bomb?
I'm saying no. I'm saying figuratively.
Oh, because I wouldn't put it past them like somebody lets off a nuclear weapon.
Nuclear weapon just kills. No, well, I mean, they've rebooted their stories countless times. So in comic book world, but I think she can survive figuratively, where they say all of these heroes are gone, and she, I don't know, warped off into some land, or the only person Flash could save when everything was happening and exploding was Wonder Woman. They can write something like that. That's not hard stuff. Another thing that I was thinking is that you cut the budget, right? So if we're saying stay the course, you cut the budget and you don't go for these big explosions and spectacular situations. You really focus on character-driven stories, and you shrink your budget down to really drive the narrative of whatever the character is going through within those stories.
If they're still seeing Henry Cavill, and they're still seeing Ezra Miller, still seeing Ray Fisher, are they gonna care? And I didn't even, you notice I didn't mention Ben Affleck.
Right.
But will they care? I honestly, and again, this pains me to say it because I'm really enjoying the Henry Cavill Superman.
He works for me. Yeah.
I think you just gotta say, you know what, Gal Gadot, it was great working with you. You did a lot for us.
You're saying everyone.
Everybody has to go.
Wow.
You either gonna do it or you're gonna half-ass it. And they kind of been, you know what I mean? They got to make decisive action.
There's been a lot of duct tape on these things.
And look, you're going to take a hit, but you're going to start slow.
Right.
And I agree with you. I mean, some movies need to be 150 million.
Right.
But, other movies could be 60 million.
Right.
You don't need all of this extra stuff. And they're just throwing money at problems as opposed to putting your story first.
Right.
So separate it all out. There's this rumor that Martin Scorsese wants to do or produce a Joker movie. Matt Reeves is going to do a Batman movie.
How does Suicide Squad still exist in this world?
Suicide Squad won an Oscar. And by the way, it made more opening weekend than Justice League. So
all right, anyway,
there's that. So the point is, you have to throw everything out. I don't know how. Unless you're going to say we're going to do Flashpoint, but I don't know if people care. And by the way, what happens? What does this mean for Aquaman? They're done filming that. What does it mean for Shazam? What does it mean for Shazam?
Right.
What does it mean for a Flashpoint movie? Right? That's not even scheduled.
Well, that's just in their pocket. I just referenced that because that has to be in their pocket to just erase everything.
That's the only way you can erase it and keep the people that you want to keep.
What was the point of Flash popping up in Bruce's vision in BVS?
No, there's no payoff for that. Forget about that. That happened back when they thought they were going to get to do 2 of these things.
Oh, okay.
Because they
with Darkseid and everything, right?
Yeah. Okay. Steppenwolf is part 1, and then you get to meet Darkseid. But they cut all that out.
Right.
So,
jeez,
I don't know what happens here. I really don't.
Do you think we're going to even see Zack Snyder's cut?
No, it doesn't exist. It does not exist, folks.
That's brutal.
He left the film. It was unfinished because he was supposed to have another 6 months.
Right.
And he's not coming back. We don't know, with what his family had to deal with. We don't know if he wants to be back, directing and in a screening room with this film that what happened. So that's not happening because there's no way to tie it all together. Maybe 10 years from now, you'll see like a Blade Runner style thing where you'll get the director's cut or definitive cut or something like that.
Right.
But that's
For now,
really
it's
it,
not
man.
happening.
I 96. Oh, by the way, that's out of date. The weekend actuals came in and it's actually 93.64
Wait, it's less?
less. Yep.
Oh,
Didn't even
man.
crack 95 million.
Those numbers are brutal.
They're abysmal. So again,
Brutal.
you cannot keep going down this road. And I'm sure certain people are going to get fired for this, but you just can't. So I'm sorry. This is my opinion, folks. I think they're going to have to shut it all down, build a new foundation.
Is there any way anyone, I mean, obviously these things, you can't blame one person and you shouldn't blame, we're in a blame society, but is there someone that you hold more accountable than
Oh, there are
else?
so many people I hold accountable.
Okay.
You know, to an
as
extent,
we're closing
to
this
an
up
extent,
and stuff like that.
to an extent, yeah, there's blame to go around, but to an extent, I do blame Zack Snyder a bit because I think he is a phenomenal filmmaker.
Right.
But I do not think the first sin for this thing is you can't give Zack Snyder a blank check.
Right.
When you put restrictions on what he can do with funds, then the artist has to get more creative instead of throwing
just
money at a problem.
Right.
So that there's that. Then let's say we're past Zack Snyder.
Mm-hmm.
Zack Snyder's off the film. You bring in Joss Whedon. You got the goodwill of the people.
Right.
But then you don't push the thing back.
Okay. So now you're mad at the studio because they're impatient.
Specifically
and
Kevin Tsujihara. I think he needs to be fired over this. And this is no joke. He needs to be fired because this is a franchise worth tens of billions of dollars.
Batman,
and I'm sorry,
Superman,
pardon my
Wonder
French,
Woman.
but they shit the bed. This
Brutal.
film had the potential to make $2 billion. It
93 million.
You know, this should have been a 200 million opening weekend.
Right.
But it, 93. So
maybe it's because it was in a summer movie.
No. Because you know why? You know what comes out in December and what's gonna do bank?
What's
Star Wars. But hey, maybe you want to talk about a comic book movie. What did Thor do? Thor, arguably the worst MCU character.
Right. But they built to
700 million in its second week. So,
oh man.
Thor.
Brutal.
So
as you're wrapping this up. Yeah.
And then who else gets it? Said Zack Snyder.
You said Zack Snyder. You went for the big guns. Yeah. You went directly.
I said he needs to be fired.
Yeah, you said the studio for not pushing that date back.
And mainly, and this is for everything we've seen, Chris Terrio. Chris Terrio is the screenwriter he's the screenwriter from Argo, which won an Oscar, and he won an Oscar for that script.
That's Ben Affleck's guy.
Yes, because when they brought on Ben Affleck, he brought on Chris Terrio.
Okay. And
Chris Terrio's out there shaping what things will be.
Right.
And so Chris Terrio is the writer on BVS, and he was also the writer on Justice League.
He was the writer on BVS?
Yeah.
He wrote Martha?
Because Batman brought him in. I don't know whose line that was, but
he wrote Martha?
So this guy, maybe it's him, because we saw, Zack Snyder can tell a good story.
Right.
So maybe it's not just like giving people free reign. Maybe you just got to look at Chris Terrio, because he wrote these things, so he's just as much as responsible for the tone as anybody.
Yo, man, you had Batman smiling in Justice League. Batman doesn't.
He was
smile.
Also bleeding.
He made
somewhere.
grim. He made grin, but he does not smile. Stop it.
But who do you blame for all this? And then we're gonna just sort of wrap this thing up.
I'm not so good with the names as you are, so I'm just saying everyone.
Everybody, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is why this thing needs to be reboot. You got to throw the baby out with the bathwater on this one.
I hate
Sorry,
that analogy,
but you know they got to go. I
right,
hate
right,
the state that we're in. You know, I thought DC would be there to make good films and push Marvel to be even better,
right,
and you
right,
had a
right,
real competition.
right.
It's
Nah,
almost it's almost sad how good these Marvel movies are now, because
and you know, Marvel doesn't listen. Marvel is not producing like these AAA. Like some of their films are like, meh, but even their just passables are still great.
right,
You know what I
because
mean?
you know it is a part of a larger universe and it
Right,
plays,
right,
and you
right,
know
right.
if I'm getting this movie that's just all right, it's because they're gonna show that off somewhere later,
Exactly.
and so you can appreciate that. But again, everybody's to blame, and honestly, maybe we're to blame too. You know, we all I bought the BVS Blu-ray. You know what I'm saying?
No, you're the only one to
Hang,
blame for that. You
hang on,
watched.
hang on,
Stop.
hang on. I'm saying collectively, that film made 870. I don't know how much million in the box office. That has nothing to do with me buying the Blu-ray.
That has everything to do with you buying the
So
Blu-ray.
my point is, maybe
You said that movie 20 times.
possibly if you count the extended cuts, yes. But the point is,
You like abuse.
they knew that we were just gonna see these movies, and that's how they're made.
Right.
It's like it doesn't matter. We're gonna
Let's
get them
just
anyway,
Get this money. Yeah.
and that's how we got what we got.
So this is a referendum on how not to do a superhero movie.
It's a referendum on how not to do anything. Like just you have folks. You have to build on a solid
right.
foundation and take your time because it will pay off later.
Yes.
Don't worry about being behind.
Lessons in life.
Anything else? You got any other thoughts you want to say here before
No,
before I
man.
sing us out of
Not
here?
not at all. All I know is just really quick is it's very disappointing that Justice League flopped as big
Hard.
as as bad yeah, as bad as it did, but not surprising. I don't blame anyone for not going to see it.
Do
I
you want to
understand.
see more of this thing?
I want to see more of DC. I'm not gonna lie.
No, I mean
do.
in this universe. Are you excited for the next Aquaman movie?
I'm not. And listen, I know
Feeling
I'm not
real
I'm not
Age
the
of
average.
Apocalypse right now. Like,
Yeah, yeah, I like that one. I like that one.
Out, but,
Yeah, man. I'm not.
I guess.
I'm not, man. So
if I must,
yeah. So
here's the thing.
I don't know.
Here's the thing, and they're done filming that. I don't know if that's coming out.
They're not gonna stop.
Why? Why? What if it's another loss? They have to build Inception now to get in people's heads, to be in the zeitgeist now. Whereas Marvel, even though they're putting in a lot of work, it almost seems like they're on cruise control.
They are absolutely on cruise control.
So right now, you look,
Absolutely on cruise control.
You gotta re-up. But again, final thoughts here. What do you got? Anything?
Not really. I said what I have to say. Everyone's to blame. It's unfortunate. I do want to see something good in regards to DC. Only time will tell, or maybe it won't. Maybe they have to blow the whole thing up. I still believe that Gal Gadot could survive that of them getting rid of everyone, and she's just the only person to survive in terms of as far as being Wonder Woman.
If you do Flashpoint, then you have to keep Barry Allen. You have to keep that Flash.
That's a good point. So maybe he grows old. You know what I mean? And they do some old shot when he runs through time and he ages. So that's all I have to say. It's crazy all that happened to this film, and you could take us on out, Steve. But it is what it is, man.
I think that this film and this franchise as a whole will be studied for years to come in film school on how do you ruin a golden goose.
That's a good point. Yeah.
This will be a master class on what not to do if you want to start a universe.
If you're just trying to follow the money.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what this film, if nothing,
And
this
not
franchise, if nothing else, is instructive. And so that said, I had fun with the film because there was nothing to not have fun about. That doesn't make it a great film, but it was just a series of vignettes cut together with no sort of
no life
connective
to it, right?
tissue.
Yeah.
And they added life. There was levity. There was jokes. Though they did feel forced. And again, I just can't help. Why didn't you push this thing back? And it just goes from jump, poor decision making.
Right.
You know, they see all
At
this
every
money.
turn.
We've got the green-eyed monster here. They see all the money Marvel's making. Why can't we do that too? We have better characters. But you got to take your time to get there.
Right.
So, with that, folks, I think we've said enough. We're here at the hour mark now. So again, I just want to thank you guys. This has been another episode of On the Reel After the Credits. This is a
show.
Special edition,
Yeah.
two-man show where we just discussed that number, man. That it's a number. But 96 million, lowest opening
93,
of the,
get it right.
93.84, lowest opening of the DCEU. What happens from here? What do you guys think happens from here?
Right.
Where does DC go next? Do they need to shut it down? Do they keep Gal Gadot? What happens to Henry Cavill? Or should they do a Man of Steel 2? Will they use Flashpoint Paradox to rewrite this whole thing? Tell us what you think if you're still out there. And again, do us a favor. Hit like, hit subscribe. Talk to us on social media. Let's get this conversation started. What do you want to see? And oh yeah, by the way, in case we don't talk to you, happy Turkey Day.